21 years ago, a 19-year-old young man vanished right in the middle of a family beach stroll in Kona, disappearing without a trace and leaving behind a family shattered by grief and unanswered questions. Authorities suspected he had fallen into the ocean. A simple, easy-to-accept hypothesis, but there was no body, no convincing physical evidence, and too few leads to pursue, causing the investigation to quickly stall. However, throughout those long years, one desperate father never gave up hope, clinging to the belief that his son could not simply disappear like that. Then one day, after a heavy rain caused a landslide in Hilo, a crucial detail that everyone had overlooked was discovered. A detail powerful enough to change the entire case and shock everyone involved in ways no one could have imagined. Before diving into this haunting story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe. Hilo, Kona, in the summer of 2005, carried the familiar calm of a coastal town on the island of Hawaii, where the black rock shoreline stretched along powerful waves and Alibi Drive was always brightly lit by restaurants, shops, and a steady stream of tourists. The terrain here was complex. Ancient lava flows formed deep fissures, rugged rock ledges led straight down to the sea, and narrow paths were just wide enough for one person to pass. In that setting, the Hilo family lived not far from central Kona, a well-known family of four, Daniel and Marina, along with their two sons, Liam, 22, and Kai, 19. Kai, the youngest, was seen as quiet but sociable, loved hiking, and often carried his camera whenever he went out. On the evening of August 18, 2005, the Hilo family was at a seaside restaurant on Ali Esh I to celebrate Liam's graduation. The meal took place in a relaxed atmosphere. The restaurant was busy, but not overly noisy, with strong sea breezes carrying the clear scent of salt across the table. After dinner, the whole family left the restaurant and strolled along Ali Kaya Drive, where streetlights reflected off the damp rock surface, creating a feeling that was both safe and fragile. Near a turnoff leading to the rocky shoreline area, Kai said he wanted to go out there for a moment to view the ocean at night. He carried his camera and stepped down a small slope to the edge of the rocks, while the rest of the family continued walking slowly along the sidewalk. At first, no one thought Kai splitting off was unusual because it was an area he frequently visited, but as 10 minutes passed, then 20, the family stopped to wait. Daniel went back to the spot where Kai had turned off, calling his name loudly. Marina shone her phone flashlight toward the rocks. Liam walked along the roadside looking for signs of movement, but the entire area was completely quiet. There was no response, no camera flash, no sign of a person or any movement below. Another search loop yielded no results, no fresh footprints, no dropped items, no clues indicating Kai was still nearby. Anxiety spread quickly as the clock passed 9 p.m., and streetlights grew sparser along the rocky section. After the family made one final sweep of the area with no sign of Kai, Daniel realized the situation was beyond self-handling. He stood right at the path down to the rocks, where darkness and wave sounds merged into an ominous void, then took out his phone and called 911. The call was routed to the Kona Dispatch Center, where the operator took details of a 19-year-old male missing in the rocky shoreline area near Ali. Based on 2005 protocols, the case was classified as requiring rapid response but not yet confirmed high risk, triggering initial deployment. A patrol unit already in the Kailua commercial area was immediately dispatched and reached the location Daniel described in under 10 minutes. When the officers arrived, they found the Hilo family gathered near the path down to the rocks, still calling Kai's name. Initial procedures were implemented. The scene officer asked all family members to describe the last time they saw Kai the moment he left the group, the exact spot where he split off, his actions at that time, and whether Kai showed any unusual behavior before leaving. Marina confirmed Kai went down to the rocks near the Ali Drive intersection carrying his camera. Liam said Kai only mentioned wanting to check out the ocean and would be right back. Officers noted the time Kai left the group as shortly after 8:30 p.m. and the time the family realized something was wrong as around 19 time, creating a nearly half-hour window with no witnesses. The patrol team continued gathering a detailed description of Kai: height, build, clothing, whether he was wearing shoes or sandals, any items besides the camera. They checked for any medical history, unstable behavior, or habits of wandering off during walks. The area conditions were also assessed. This was a steep rocky shoreline with uneven surfaces, some deep fissures dropping into the water. Street lighting did not fully illuminate the entire zone, making nighttime observation difficult. After compiling initial data, the scene officer classified the incident as missing person nighttime coastal zone per 2005 guidelines, prioritizing immediate search but lacking elements to treat it as criminal or a serious accident. Since there were no physical signs at the scene, no dropped items, no signs of struggle, no clear slip marks leading to the sea, the group agreed the scene did not yet require cordoning off or criminal processing. Instead, standard procedure for coastal missing persons was applied, establishing an initial search radius of several hundred meters from Kai's last seen point. One team was assigned to check seaward along the rock ledges Kai might have accessed. Another swept along the roadside to see if anyone in the area had seen Kai earlier. Police mapped the scene and marked 3 priority zones: the main path where Kai turned off, 2 extended rock sections to the north and south where terrain allowed access if Kai moved out of family view. After completing the initial assessment, patrol forces set up a temporary command point on the Alicade Drive roadside to review information, assign tasks, and identify areas for priority checks in dark conditions. Once priorities were agreed and lighting plans prepared, the search team immediately shifted to on-site sweeps. Nighttime search forces were deployed shortly after, focusing on the 3 designated key areas. One team with high-powered flashlights and portable lights moved down the rock path where Kai was last seen. They advanced in small formations to minimize noise that could interfere with observation while maintaining safety on the uneven rock surface. They shone lights into fissures right at the rock edge, where old lava created deep channels leading straight to the sea. Some cracks were only tens of centimeters wide but deep enough to completely conceal a person if fallen into. Strong waves crashing against the rocks produced white foam that obscured visibility, making nighttime observation even harder. Meanwhile, another team moved north along a narrow coastal trail through seaside brush. The trail saw little traffic, used mainly by tourists or locals during the day for photos, and almost none at night. Searchers checked every meter, continuously sweeping lights across the ground for footprints, fresh trash, or any dropped items. However, dry sand and loose rock made it hard to retain clear traces, especially with strong sea winds erasing shoe prints or drag marks within minutes. A third team was assigned the southern section, where terrain was steeper and waves hit harder, creating many slippery rock patches. Every movement was carefully calculated to avoid accidents during the search. They used spotlights to scan coral reefs near the water's edge, as a victim could have slipped and become trapped in gaps between coral and rock. However, high water reflection and constant wave motion prevented light from penetrating deeply for clear viewing. After nearly an hour of sweeping, no signs were recorded: clothing, personal items, or responses from below. To ensure nothing was missed upslope, a small team returned to Alicade Drive and continued searching along fences, parking areas, and roadside zones in case Kai had climbed back up but headed the opposite direction from the family. Patrol vehicles activated hazard lights to slow traffic for pedestrian safety and provide auxiliary lighting nearby. Still, no new witnesses emerged, and no evidence showed Kai had left the area via the main road. Field conditions worsened as winds increased and waves pounded harder, reducing observation effectiveness. Sea spray misted lighting equipment, forcing teams to wipe them dry repeatedly. By then, the sun had fully set, plunging areas beyond streetlight range into thick darkness. Officers noted that even with enhanced lighting, many spots below the rocks remained unobservable due to tiered terrain and steep drops. After nearly 2 hours of continuous search, nighttime forces summarized: no footprints entering or leaving the rocks, no items left beyond what family described, no clear slip marks, and no unusual sounds from the sea. This made determining the missing person's direction difficult due to lack of concrete data to narrow the scope. The scene commander decided to log all nighttime observations into a preliminary report and pause the search to prepare forces for the next morning, when natural light would allow expanded range and use of additional tools like canoes, divers, and sonar. Officers concluded that night that no factors indicated Kai had left the area on foot, but there were also no signs confirming he had fallen into the sea, leaving the situation undetermined. Search forces dispersed in small groups, returning to the Alicade Drive command point to plan the next day's search, based on daylight and a much wider scope than possible at night. As soon as it was light, the scene commander deployed an expanded search plan per coastal missing person protocols, bringing in additional support from the Coast Guard, local dive units, and a canoe team specialized in checking shallow waters near the rocks. Expanding the search was deemed necessary because the previous night's efforts yielded no signs of Kai's movement. The Coast Guard team used fast response boats to run parallel to the Kona shoreline, staying close enough for visual observation while safe from strong waves. From the boats, crew used fog-resistant binoculars to scan the water surface, rock edges, and large pools that could trap light objects. Concurrently, a 4-member canoe team paddled along the coral edge, accessing crevices larger vessels could not reach. They used probing poles to check depressions and see if any items were caught in coral grooves. While water surface teams swept, assigned divers approached depths of 2 to 5 meters near the rocks, where volcanic rock formed natural underwater ledges. On land, the shore search team swept the entire rock band from Kai's last seen point in both north and south directions. They checked every rock patch and small pool where objects could lodge after falling. As sunlight rose and tide receded slightly, one shore search member spotted a sandal near a depression on the rock surface, a few meters from the water's edge. The sandal matched the type Kai typically wore per family description, with matching color and size. Its position was not right at the waterline, but on a relatively flat spot where waves would not easily reach under average tide conditions. When documenting, they noted the sandal's underside was only lightly damp, inconsistent with repeated wave pounding on rocks. The surrounding area showed no slip marks, no drag trails, or wet sand streaks, raising suspicion that the sandal had not been washed up from the water, but seemed placed or dropped there without strong water force. Continuing in this area, searchers found a second piece of evidence, a dark-colored backpack in a small rock hollow, positioned a few meters farther inland than the sandal. The backpack's lower part touching the rock was lightly damp, but the top was completely dry, indicating no prolonged direct wave contact. The wetness level did not match morning low tide. If swept in during high tide, the fabric would show more uniform saturation. Investigators noted this detail and requested the scene remain undisturbed for photos, measurements of distances between evidence, and correlation with the most recent tide records. Upon checking the backpack's exterior compartments, searchers found a small digital camera inside the main pocket with the zipper only partially closed. The camera was not fully waterlogged, but had only light moisture around the edges, an anomaly, as repeated direct wave hits would have submerged it more deeply. This half-dry, half-damp state did not fit the scenario of items washed up from the waterline. A technician quickly recorded the backpack's position with handheld GPS and compared it to the previous night's tide trajectory, confirming water levels never reached the backpack's location during Kai's disappearance window. Combining the three pieces of evidence, sandal, backpack, and camera, searchers observed their positions formed in even diagonal spacing, undisturbed by water flow, and lacking heavy impact marks, typical of objects tumbling over rough rock. The spacing felt naturally scattered, yet the moisture levels, positions, and tide data did not support this hypothesis. The scene report noted, evidence located in positions inconsistent with wave action, low likelihood of being washed up from below. After technicians completed measurements and photography, evidence was carefully collected, the sandal placed in a separate bag, the backpack and camera sealed in moisture-proof containers to preserve material condition. Each item was numbered and documented with coordinates, discovery time, surface moisture, and detailed environmental conditions. The on-site data team began preliminary assessment. The discovery of 3 items in relatively elevated positions above normal sea level raised questions that they did not arrive there naturally. The zone between rocks and trail showed no drag or trampling signs. Surrounding areas remained clean and undisturbed. This led to the assumption that if Kai had an accident at the rocks, these items were unlikely to end up in their current positions without strong external force. Although nothing could yet be concluded about the victim's status, search teams clearly documented that the scene contained anomalous elements requiring closer examination in subsequent steps. All morning data was compiled into a report, marking the first major milestone in the search process. Direct evidence linked to Kai was found, yet it did not align with any standard accident scenario based on Kona's terrain and tidal conditions. Right after seizing the 3 pieces of evidence and completing the on-site documentation, the crime scene investigation team was instructed to re-examine the entire rocky shoreline area to determine the consistency between the locations where the items were found and the likelihood of a natural maritime accident. First, they inspected the stretch of rocky shore extending from the last point where Kai was seen to the marker where the sandals and backpack were discovered. The terrain here was uneven. Some flat sections interspersed with stacked rock layers, deep fissures running down to the water, and sharp-edged rock slabs that could cause injury if someone fell onto them. At the main observation point, the rock surface was dry with only a thin layer of salt from evaporated sea spray. There were no signs of water having reached the position where the sandals and backpack were located. The officers measured the distances from the two pieces of evidence to the lowest water line that morning and cross-referenced them with tide data from the previous night provided by the hydrographic station. The results showed that the highest water level that night only reached a rock section a few meters away and was not high enough to carry any lightweight objects up to the recorded positions. When examining wave direction, they noted that throughout the night the wind blew from the southwest, pushing waves against the shore at an oblique angle and creating a northward-leaning current. If items from Kai's person had fallen into the water and drifted, they would have moved northward rather than remaining neatly in the central area near the rocky access path. This discrepancy forced investigators to consider the possibility that the items had not come into contact with seawater at all, or if they had, only for an extremely short time insufficient to produce the uniform dampness typically seen in drifted objects. To confirm further, the team conducted a simulation of the drift path of lightweight objects, equivalent to sandals or a backpack, by releasing several test items into the water near the rock edge and observing their movement. All samples were pounded against the rocks by waves, moved northward, and none came to rest in the high, flat area where the sandals and backpack were found. This reinforced the conclusion that the positions of the two pieces of evidence were inconsistent with natural drift trajectories. When examining the camera, the investigation team noted a thin layer of moisture on its surface that was incompatible with the device having been submerged or repeatedly exposed to ocean waves. If the camera had fallen into the water immediately after Kai met with misfortune, it was highly likely the device would have taken on significant water, causing obvious damage. In contrast, the recovered camera showed only light dampness consistent with lying on the rock surface under dew and sea mist conditions, not direct seawater exposure. Another analytical step focused on the possibility that the items had fallen during a slip and fall. The team assessed the rock surface in the nearest area where Kai might have descended, searching for skid marks, fabric fragments, scrapes, or any signs indicating forceful human body movement downward. No fresh cracks or fractures were found, no scraped rock surfaces, and no drag paths suggestive of a fall. This made the hypothesis that Kai fell from a height while carrying sandals or a backpack difficult to support, because if such an accident had occurred, one or more items from the victim would typically have caught on lower rock ledges or been swept farther out by waves, rather than lying intact in the dry, minimally disturbed area. The investigation team continued analyzing the possibility that the evidence items had fallen from a low height, in a scenario where Kai walked close to the rock edge and dropped them. However, even this scenario failed to explain the regular spacing between the sandals and backpack, as the two items were offset in a direction inconsistent with free-fall trajectories. Technicians also checked whether the items could have been picked up by someone and accidentally placed in their current positions, but the area saw little foot traffic at night and showed no corresponding shoe prints or movement signs around it. Examination of the rock surface revealed the entire area to be dry, with no signs of recent disturbance near the time of discovery. Meanwhile, an assessment of natural conditions of the time of Kai's disappearance showed that the terrain and environment were unlikely to produce the recorded evidence state without human intervention. Waves that night were reported as moderate to strong, with steady, unchanging wind direction for many hours. This made it implausible for a sandal or backpack to remain stationary in a high, dry position without being shifted. Combining all the data, investigators concluded that the scene did not match any conventional maritime accident model. There was insufficient evidence to indicate the victim slipped, was swept away, or dropped items while in contact with seawater. However, during the inspection, they also found no physical signs of assault, struggle, or dragging. No bloodstains, no disturbed soil or rock, no unfamiliar shoe prints, or signs of resistance. This placed the scene in a special state, anomalous elements present but no clear indication of any criminal direction. The team documented the entire analysis in the official report, marking the scene as inconsistent with natural accident, but lacking sufficient legal grounds to classify it as criminal, and prepared to shift to other information sources to narrow possibilities and evaluate additional hypotheses related to Kai's disappearance. After completing the scene analysis without identifying a specific investigative direction, the investigation team decided to shift focus to re-establishing the timeline related to the evening the Kahele family was present on Aleshai Drive, starting with interviewing Liam, since he was the person closest to Kai before the disappearance. The interview was conducted in a temporary workspace at the Kona station, where investigators asked Liam to describe his full schedule from the afternoon until the missing person report. Liam stated that he was at home in the afternoon, spending most of the time preparing for the family graduation celebration meal, then left home around 19:00 to go to the restaurant with his parents and Kai. Investigators requested clearer milestones. Liam confirmed the family had a reservation at Hago's on the Rocks for around 19:30, arrived on time, and ate for about an hour and a half. He described the dinner as normal, with no arguments or incidents. Upon leaving the restaurant, the family walked south along Aliyai Drive. Liam stated that Kai walked slowly for a stretch, then suddenly turned down to the rocky shore without saying much, only mentioning he wanted to look at the sea while the rest continued walking. When asked about the exact time between seeing Kai leave and the family realizing he had not returned, Liam estimated about 10 to 15 minutes. However, investigators noted that Kai's parents reported approximately 20 to 30 minutes. This discrepancy was flagged as a minor inconsistency requiring further verification. When cross-referencing Liam's reported times with the restaurant payment receipt data, the team observed that dinner ended a few minutes later than the timeline Liam provided, raising questions about whether he was not fully accurate or did not recall the sequence correctly. Investigators re-asked what Liam did immediately after Kai turned down to the rocky shore. He replied that he continued walking with his parents and only began to worry when he noticed Kai had not caught up. However, this answer did not fully align with Marina's description that Liam had returned to the rocky area before she and Daniel reacted more strongly. The inconsistency was not major, but was recorded as noteworthy since it involved the most critical time window before Kai's disappearance. When asked to specify exactly where he stood when he first called for Kai, Liam did not state clearly, only saying near the rock access path. While investigators needed more precise information to compare with the distance sound could carry under strong wind and large wave conditions. This was noted as a point lacking clarity. Additionally, when analyzing behavior, investigators observed that Liam described events in summary form rather than in a natural chronological sequence, a pattern often seen in individuals attempting to reorganize memories logically rather than according to actual events. However, since the evening had no clear incidents, imperfect memory was not considered unusual. Investigators checked Liam's activities further that day. He claimed he did not leave the house before dinner and did not meet anyone outside the family. There were no independent witnesses to confirm, but also no evidence contradicting his statement. At the end of the session, the team assessed that although some of Liam's time points did not fully match his parents' accounts or the restaurant receipt, these deviations were not sufficient to establish grounds for criminal suspicion. There was no evidence Liam left a group or exhibited unusual behavior immediately before Kai's disappearance, and no physical elements at the scene directly linked him to any harmful hypothesis. Therefore, Liam was not classified as a suspect, but the timeline he provided was fully recorded, with mismatched points flagged for future cross-referencing if new data emerged. Investigators concluded the session with an assessment of insufficient grounds for suspicion and transferred Liam's entire timeline into the case file for use as a reference in subsequent reconstruction steps of the investigation. After the initial interview with Liam, the team moved to cross-verifying timelines by working with two close friends Liam had mentioned, Matt Rourke and Sean Piper. Both were contacted the following morning to come to Kona PD and provide information related to the evening the Kahili family dined on Aliyai Drive. The goal was not to identify a suspect but to check whether Liam had contact with anyone outside the family, left the group at any point, or showed unusual behavior before Kai's disappearance. When asked about that evening, Matt stated he did not meet Liam in person but received a short text message around 1800 in which Liam said he was busy having dinner with family and would call back later. Matt did not recall the exact arrival time but affirmed it occurred before full dark. When cross-checked with Liam's statement, investigators noted Liam had described no contact with anyone outside the family throughout the afternoon and evening, which conflicted with Matt's information. Though not a major discrepancy, it was noted because it directly concerned Liam's activity before the disappearance. Sean was also asked about his most recent interaction with Liam. He said he had seen Liam that same morning in the parking lot of a grocery store, but they did not talk much. They only greeted each other and went separate ways. Sean received no messages or calls that evening. When asked to describe Liam's recent personality and habits, Sean mentioned that Liam had seemed anxious lately, often avoided talking about school, and frequently changed plans abruptly. Though this was a personal observation, it was recorded as it aligned with inconsistencies in Liam's account of the evening schedule. After completing both interviews, the team cross-referenced Matt's and Sean's statements with Liam's timeline. The main mismatches centered on departure time from home, whether Liam contacted friends before dinner, and the interval from leaving the restaurant until realizing Kai was missing. Although none of the contradictions were serious enough to indicate concealment or deception, they showed the evening picture was not fully consistent, requiring the team to expand another round of references. Therefore, they contacted Evan Silva, a mutual friend of Liam and Kai, who Matt had previously mentioned as someone who might better understand Liam's behaviors or relationships. Evan arrived at headquarters that afternoon and was asked to describe the overall relationship between brothers Liam and Kai, as well as any past events that could clarify Liam's behavior. Evan stated that Liam had once talked about family pressure regarding studies and future expectations, occasionally complaining that it was hard to meet his parents' standards. Evan did not believe this directly related to the disappearance, but when pressed further, he recalled that about 2 years earlier, Liam had made a joking but uncomfortable comment about not wanting anyone in his way, though without specifying meaning or mentioning Kai directly. At the time, no one considered it noteworthy, but in the current context, the team was compelled to record it due to its relevance to Liam's long-term psychological state. When asked about the closeness between Liam and Kai, Evan described their sibling relationship as normal, neither overtly conflictual nor particularly close. No one in their friend group had seen serious arguments between them. However, Evan noted that Liam sometimes appeared irritated when Kai received more parental attention, especially during family activities. This information was insufficient to constitute evidence of motive or conflict, but was regarded as supplementary material to be filed. After the meeting with Evan, the team held a brief meeting to synthesize all statements. The three sources, Liam, Matt, and Sean, did not form a fully unified timeline. Some discrepancies could be attributed to subjective memory, but others involving timing and interactions prompted the team to reflag them for later cross-checking. Internal notes determined that Liam could not be considered a suspect based on these minor inconsistencies. They were not distinctive enough to indicate concealment or involvement in the disappearance. At the same time, Evan's information about past odd remarks was categorized as potential information, but lacked sufficient weight to expand the investigation into a criminal direction. All data was added to the suspicious information file and flagged for reanalysis if new leads appeared. Ultimately, the team concluded that although witness statements were not perfectly consistent, objective evidence at the scene still showed no signs of crime or third-party intervention at this point. So the case continued to be handled as a missing person incident with undetermined cause. Immediately after completing the witness interview series and finding the statements provided no clear direction, the investigation team decided to expand the search to a second wide-area operation, covering both underwater and onshore to completely rule out the possibility that Kai had died near the disappearance location. The underwater search was prioritized because if Kai had an accident on the rocky shore and fell in theory, the body could have become lodged in deep rock crevices or trapped under coral layers. The Coast Guard deployed a small patrol vessel equipped with older generation sonar, ultrasonic equipment, capable of detecting large objects on the seabed within nearshore range. Although the technology at the time was not advanced enough for detailed identification or small structure resolution, sonar could still detect anomalous masses, identify seabed gaps or depressions where a body might lodge. However, the Kona area featured complex geology, multi-layered volcanic rock base, interwoven deep trenches, and rapidly changing seabed slopes meter by meter, making sonar signal interpretation difficult. Nonetheless, the sonar team ran sweeps along 3 parallel lines to the rocky shore, starting from Kai's last seen position and gradually expanding north and south. Sonar returns primarily showed rugged seabed, large boulders mixed with coral zones, with no abnormal shapes resembling a human body. In areas where signals were faint or noisy, divers were sent down for direct inspection. They carried waterproof cameras and safety lines, clinging to rock walls amid strong waves. The morning seawater was clear, but strong currents continuously stirred up sand and sediment, limiting visibility beyond 3 meters depth. Despite thorough checks of every depression, crevice, and coral layer, divers found no evidence beyond a few seashells and loose rocks. No clothing, no electronic devices, no signs belonging to Kai. After more than 3 hours of inspection, the underwater team concluded that the sea area near the scene contained no body or related items, at least not within sonar and manual diving accessible range. The investigation team accepted that if a body had entered the water, strong currents could have carried it farther. but they had no data to determine direction because the onshore evidence state was inconsistent with the slip-and-fall hypothesis. Therefore, to ensure no possibility was overlooked, the land search expanded to the coastal Coho forest area, several hundred meters south of the disappearance point. Although no direct evidence suggested Kai had left the rocky shore in that direction, Liam had mentioned that Kai sometimes liked to separate from the group and walk along coastal trails to take photos. Coho Forest contained many small trails, some opening to rocky beaches, others leading deeper among low trees. The search team divided into 3 groups, each responsible for one direction, starting from the most accessible trails and expanding to smaller branches. They looked for typical signs of someone entering the forest at night: fresh shoe prints, broken branches, displaced rocks, or small items like bottle caps, clothing fragments, camera batteries. However, the dry forest terrain and thick layer of decaying leaves made footprint detection difficult. Additionally, daytime tourist foot traffic mixed many old and new shoe prints, complicating identification of any related to Kai. The team inspected deep rock hollows tens of meters from the shore, places that could conceal a person in low light. They shone lights into large cavities and probed depths with poles, but found only boulders and dry soil. In one forest edge depression, the team found a few shoe prints, but with faint outlines, insufficient to determine formation time. The size also did not fully match Kai's described footwear, and the area was near a tourist trail, so the likelihood of unrelated traces was deemed high. The search team continued, expanding several hundred meters farther south to cover all areas potentially reachable within Kai's disappearance time frame, but still found no clear leads. They also checked common fishing spots, but noted the area was too broad, with no new traces related to the case. When compiling all data from the second-wide search, the investigation team concluded there was no body, no drag marks, no additional items, and no signs indicating Kai had moved deep into Coho Forest or fallen into the sea in the swept directions. The absence of traces in both environments, sea and forest, reduced the ability to determine Kai's initial movement direction and reinforced the assessment that the disappearance lacked foundational data to establish cause. Internal reports recorded the status: wide search range but no physical evidence related to the victim. Based on what was gathered, the team could not conclude any specific hypothesis and had to acknowledge that the current file remained too thin to shift to a clear criminal or accident investigation. This wide-area search once again yielded no new direction, leaving the case in a state lacking critical data to determine the next investigative step. The second wide-area search yielded no additional clues, forcing the investigative team to return to compiling all data collected since the disappearance was reported. The compilation included the shore-based evidence, system Kai's flip-flops, backpack, and camera, along with their particularly dry, elevated condition when found, showing no water exposure in any manner consistent with an accident pattern. The timeline provided by Liam, despite minor discrepancies when compared to the parent statements and information from friends Matt and Sean, did not indicate any unusual departure from the group or abnormal contact prior to Kai's disappearance. Witness statements, including those from Evan Silva, also failed to produce any specific investigative leads. Comments about Liam's personality or mood were not directly relevant to the time of disappearance. Underwater sonar and diver sweeps detected no body or items carried away by currents. Searches in the Coho Forest found no footprints, evidence, or signs of Kai's movement. All scene data failed to produce a clear behavioral pattern: no signs of struggle, no signs of slipping or falling, no body, and no directly suspicious behavior from any family member. Internal reports noted unusual elements of the scene, particularly the evidence locations, but lacked sufficient grounds to classify the case as a suspicious incident under Hawaii standards at the time. 2005-2006. The absence of a body also meant investigators could not determine cause of death, time of death, or the victim's path after last being seen. Under the legal conditions then in place, opening a criminal case required clear indications of assaultive behavior or physical evidence involving a third party. Neither appeared in Kai Kahili's file. The consolidated conclusion of the lead investigator stated, "The evidence reflects positional anomalies but is not evidence of crime. The timeline has discrepancies but does not lead to criminal conduct. The scene does not indicate an accident, yet it also does not establish criminal action. No body, no victim status, no signs of disturbance, no suspect." This situation forced the file to be placed on hold due to insufficient legal basis for continued criminal pursuit. Thus, in mid-2006, Kai Kahili's disappearance was reclassified as Inactive missing person, a category that remains open but is no longer actively investigated due to lack of leads. The file was then formally transferred to the Kona PD Cold Case Unit for archiving, ready to be reopened if a body, new witness, or sufficiently strong physical evidence emerged in the future to alter the initial assessment. The transfer was procedural, reflecting a lack of progress rather than an absolute closure of the investigation. But in practice, it meant Kai Cahile's disappearance entered an indefinite state of dormancy. 11 years after Kai Cahile's file was transferred to the Cold Case Unit, an unexpected chain of events on the east side of Hawaii Island completely changed the case's status. The 2017 rainy season was longer and more intense than usual, especially in the Hilo area, where rainwater from the slopes of Mauna Kea poured into ancient lava tube systems, such as Kona caves. Heavy, consecutive days of rainfall destabilized the already fragile rock and soil structure in the region, triggering a landslide just large enough to expose a previously completely concealed deep rock cavity. That morning, a local group of hikers followed a trail leading up to the wet forest area near the Kona Cave's entrance to observe post-rain flow. As one group member approached the newly collapsed cavity, they noticed a faint, reflective glint under the wet soil. Curious, they moved closer and discovered the upper portion of a small camera frame protruding from the ground, tightly encrusted with soil mixed with gravel. When they gently dug away the soil, small bone fragments interwoven with faded fabric pieces emerged. Recognizing the possibility of human remains, the hikers immediately contacted Hilo Police Department to report the situation. Upon arrival, Hilo PD patrol officers quickly secured the slide area and conducted preliminary probing. The exposed portions included a femur, humerus, partial rib sections, and several fabric fragments that appeared to have once been a shirt or carrying pouch. The camera frame was partially broken but structurally intact. The most striking observation for the on-scene investigators was the relative preservation of the evidence and its location. Everything lay within a deep rock cavity, about half a meter below the surface, suggesting the body may have been placed or fallen there long before being fully covered by soil and decaying leaves. Forensic technicians were dispatched the same day to collect bones and evidence, marking each sample's position according to protocols for excavating remains in natural conditions. After initial collection, the bone fragments were transferred to the Hilo Forensic Lab for analysis of bone age, sex, and distinctive features that could aid identification. Simultaneously, Hilo PD's Cold Case Unit reviewed all missing person reports from the prior 15 years matching male gender, late teens to early 20s age range, and disappearance on the island. A Kona PD report was immediately flagged. Kai Cahale, 19 years old, missing since 2005, no body recovered, reported to have carried a camera the evening he vanished. The discovery of the camera frame at Kona Caves became the clearest connecting factor. Although the camera's brand was no longer identifiable, its size and external structural details matched the model reported by the family in the 2005 record. This prompted Hilo Police to contact Kona PD directly to provide information and request deeper verification. Both agencies immediately coordinated due to the coincidence being too significant to ignore. Meanwhile, the forensic team conducted DNA analysis using samples from teeth and a well-preserved bone section. The analysis took several weeks due to soil and mineral contamination from the lava tube environment, but final results clearly confirmed the skeleton belonged to Kai Cahale. Identification occurred one March afternoon when lab results were delivered to both Kona PD and Hilo PD, while the Cahale family was simultaneously notified to confirm non-biological identifiers such as skeletal measurements and matching features. The family confirmed Kai had no bone deformities, fully consistent with the recovered samples. At this point, the shock stemmed not only from Kai's remains finally being found after more than a decade missing, but also from the location. Kona Caves was over 120 kilometers by road from Kai's disappearance area in Kailua, Kona, in an entirely different geographic region from the entire initial search radius. No natural route existed for a person to leave the Kona coast in the evening and reach such a distant cave system on their own, especially in the short time after separating from the group. Moreover, the Kona Caves site lay deep inland at a completely different elevation from the Kona shoreline, immediately ruling out all natural ocean accident hypotheses. This data directly contradicted the entire investigative focus on rocky shores, reefs, and coastal zones throughout 2005-2006. The prior searches had been based entirely on the assumption that Kai never left Elishabli and met misfortune nearby. Yet the body found dozens of kilometers away proved that assumption fundamentally wrong. Kona PD investigators immediately re-examined all original evidence to assess possible victim movement. However, with the body's identification, the central question shifted from what happened to Kai and Kona to a larger issue. How did the body end up in Hilo? And when did the movement occur? Given Kona Caves' proximity to Saddle Road, the main highway connecting Kona and Hilo, the team concluded this was not natural drift or a fall while walking, but certainly involved intentional movement, either self-directed or by another party. Once the skeleton was confirmed as Kai's, the 2005 missing person file was reactivated on an emergency basis. From a dormant file with no leads, the case immediately became a comprehensive re-review. As the body's appearance and conditions and a location completely inconsistent with the original scene meant the 2005 assessment had overlooked a critical factor. Kona PD officially reopened the file, requesting all original documents, statements, and 2005 evidence for re-examination. Hilo PD transferred full excavation maps, terrain descriptions, and environmental factors related to the body's discovery. This event marked the most significant shift in the case since Kai's disappearance, ending over a decade of stagnation and moving the investigation into an entirely new phase where the victim's body had been identified, but the circumstances leading to death fit none of the previously proposed hypotheses. Immediately after Kai Cahill's remains were identified via DNA testing, an in-depth forensic analysis phase began to determine the environmental nature of the discovery site, duration of burial, and factors affecting the body before death. Soil samples adhering to bones, fabric, and the camera frame were carefully collected and sent to Hilo PD's forensic lab for sediment, mineral, and organic component analysis. Preliminary results showed soil on the bones had the distinctive texture of deeply weathered volcanic sediment, with abundant basalt fragments and low silica ratio features clearly matching the soil in the Kona Caves area, situated on ancient lava flows eroded over decades. Comparing samples from 3 different positions around the discovery site, cave entrance, landslide debris field, and deep cavity soil, analysts confirmed near identical mineral content, pH, and organic humus types to the soil on the bone fragments, reinforcing that the body had remained at that location for a long period, at least many years. This eliminated the possibility of recent movement to the cave due to landslide. The complete match between soil on the bones and soil at the Hilo scene became the first indicator that the discovery location was also where Kai's body had lain throughout the long missing period, ruling out all hypotheses of drifting from Kona to Hilo or transport there long after death. Even more notably, when Kona PD re-examined 2005 evidence, a detail previously deemed insignificant suddenly gained value. The shorts Liam wore the night Kai disappeared had been preliminarily collected as standard witness evidence, not for criminal investigation, but to document the condition of those present near the time of disappearance. Upon reanalysis of residual soil on the shorts' hemi-thin layer, preserved due to sealed storage, analysts found mineral signatures highly similar to soil from the body. Initially surprising, since Kai's Kona disappearance site featured entirely different coastal soil, spectral analysis confirmed near-identical ratios of oxidized basalt microfractures in the soil on Liam's shorts to cave sediment. While Liam's shorts showed no signs of Kona coastal exposure, rich in salt and quartz sand, the adhering soil was purely inland in character, matching Hilo region composition and especially deep lava tube systems. This led to the official forensic report. Soil sample from 2005 evidence item of Liam Cahill matches soil sample from K. Cahill's 2017 body discovery scene. This conclusion could not be explained by normal activity, as no 2005 evidence showed Liam ever visiting Hilo on the day Kai disappeared, let alone any reason for exposure to a lava tube environment over 120 kilometers from Kona. To avoid error, the lab re-ran the soil analysis twice with an expanded mineral index, including ferromagnesium components and basalt degradation levels. The third run still produced near-perfect correlation coefficients, ruling out random coincidence. While soil analysis provided a key investigative direction, bone examination revealed the critical factor regarding cause of death. Kai's skeleton showed multiple fractures, right ribs, pelvis, and partial humerus. The fractures lacked healing signs, indicating they occurred near the time of death. More importantly, the forensic team determined the fracture patterns did not match seawater trauma. They were not wave pressure breaks, not coral entanglement fractures, nor falls into water from height. Instead, The break structures indicated direct impact with a hard surface, likely rock or compacted earth, most probably in a dry environment rather than marine. This directly contradicted all initial hypotheses of Kai slipping and falling into the sea at Kona. Additionally, soil adhering to fracture-zone bone fragments showed ground contact immediately post-injury, with no water decomposition phase ruling out death. In a marine environment followed by transport to the cave, micromorphological analysis on bones, including tiny root traces, organic humus, and characteristic dampness of Hilo's wet forest indicated the body had lain undisturbed at Kona for a long duration, long enough for minor microbial erosion on bone surfaces. Combining all forensic data, the team issued a summary report. Kai's body was placed or left at the Kona lava tube area, unrelated to Kona's ocean. Bone fractures inconsistent with marine accident. Soil on Liam's 2005 shorts matched soil from body discovery site. Discovery scene had no natural connection to original disappearance area. The report clearly concluded that the marine accident hypothesis, the core of the 2005 investigation, no longer held under any form. Forensic elements, particularly soil data and fracture mechanics, indicated Kai could not have died at Kona and been carried to Hilo. Instead, his body had been moved or taken to the inland area, meaning human involvement in the process leading to death. From here, investigative direction necessarily shifted to a new model. Completely rule out natural accident and consider the possibility that Kai's body was relocated by another party at or shortly after his disappearance. After forensic results confirmed Kai's remains had no connection to Kona's marine environment and showed prolonged exposure to Hilo inland forest soil, the team turned to digital data that could not be fully analyzed earlier due to 2005 technological limitations. The SD card from the camera, found with the body despite outer shell damage and compression, signs retained partial memory structure, allowing Hilo PD's digital forensics unit to use specialized recovery software to extract surviving image files. Recovered data was incomplete. Many images displayed errors, broken pixel sequences, or color-shifted blocks due to memory degradation. However, key metadata such as capture time, sensor ID, and ambient light data remained intact enough for analysis. One of the near-final images in the folder, though showing only about 40% of the content, contained metadata clearly timestamping it to the evening of Kai's disappearance. The remaining faint image showed low trees, uneven ground, and near-absent natural light features matching Kawe Forest and Kona Cave's entrance area characteristics. For verification, technicians compared metadata light data with sunset records for Kona and Hilo that day. Results showed light intensity lower than Kona's recorded levels at the same time but equivalent to inland Hilo where terrain and tree density blocked sunlight. This allowed the conclusion that the photo was taken not at Kona's coastal area, as the family initially believed. Another notable detail was the ISO value and shutter speed in metadata. The camera had auto-increased ISO to an unusually high level, occurring only in very low ambient light, consistent with shadowy forest terrain rather than Aliyah Drive's street-lit rocky shore. Combining metadata with geographic description, the team concluded one of Kai's final photos before disappearing was taken in the forest area near Hilo, completely contradicting the assumption that he never left Kona during the evening of August 18, 2005. This raised the central question: how did Kai travel over 120 kilometers from Kona to Hilo in such a short window, and who accompanied him? After exploiting the camera data, the team moved to 2005 cell tower records analysis. At that time, positioning technology lacked minute-by-minute precision, but basic connection logs were preserved as records of the last tower each phone connected to that day. Cross-referencing with Liam's data, technicians discovered his phone not only connected to Kona coastal towers that evening, but also showed an intermittent connection to a tower on Saddle Road, the only direct route from Kona to Hilo, passing through inland and mountainous forest. The connection log timing was estimated between 2050 and 21,010, squarely within Kai's disappearance window. This was the largest anomaly to date, as Liam's statement insisted he never left the Aliyah area all evening, only walking with family and returning to search for Kai. However, cell tower logs placed Liam's phone on the highway roughly 40 kilometers east of the disappearance scene during the corresponding time. To ensure data accuracy, technicians pulled 2005 carrier records and confirmed the logging system could not confuse Kona and Saddle Road towers due to entirely distinct signal structures. The only way Liam's phone connected to the Saddle Road tower was if he traveled that route. or if someone else carried his phone along it. Overlaying Kai's photo metadata with Liam's cell tower logs, the team constructed a data-driven timeline. First, Kai was in an inland area, not Kona's coast immediately, before disappearing, based on the final camera photo. Second, Liam's phone appeared on Saddle Road during Kai's disappearance timeframe. Third, the distance between last seen location and body discovery site matched no natural movement pattern but fit mechanized travel via the Kona Saddle Road Hilo route. Fourth, the drive from Kona to Kwamana Caves takes over an hour, creating an unexplained time gap that Liam's statement did not account for. From this data, a new timeline was reconstructed. Kai was not stationary at the rocky shore as initially assumed. He moved inland before disappearing, most likely with or via someone connected to the Saddle Road route. The digital evidence completely dismantled the old investigative model, showing the actual disappearance point was not on Li Bai but an entirely different island area untouched by searches for 12 years. This new timeline became the backbone of the subsequent investigation phase. Instead of focusing on Kona's coast and accident theories, investigators now had to examine travel involving Liam, his connection to the Hilo area, and the possibility that Kai did not leave Kona voluntarily, but was taken to where his body was later found. After completing the reconstruction of the timeline based on digital data, the investigative team decided to open an additional round of interviews with witnesses who had been questioned in 2005 in order to compare their old statements with the new forensic evidence and data. The first person summoned was Matt Rourke. Instead of asking broad questions, as in the initial phase, the investigators went straight to details related to key time points. Why Liam's phone connected to the Saddle Road cell tower between approximately 20:50-21:10, while Matt insisted that evening Liam had not contacted anyone except for a text message sent to Matt at 1800. Upon hearing that there was digital evidence confirming Liam had left the Kona area, Matt appeared flustered and revised his statement, saying he was not sure if Liam texted in the evening, then shifting to claim that Liam might have deleted messages, causing him to misremember. However, the statement immediately contradicted the 2005 record, which noted Matt describing the texting time quite clearly. When confronted, Matt admitted that in 2005 he had deliberately downplayed the extent of contact between himself and Liam because he didn't want to get pulled into the disappearance, but he still insisted he did not. No Liam left Kona that evening. The investigative team flagged the statement as unstable and lacking credibility. The second person summoned was Sean Piper. When cross-referencing his old statement that Sean did not meet Liam in the evening and only saw Liam in the morning, investigators presented cell tower data showing Liam on Saddle Road during the timeframe Sean claimed Liam was in Kona. Sean initially expressed surprise, but when pressed further about their relationship, Sean admitted that Liam sometimes borrowed friends' cars and liked to drive alone to de-stress. When asked if he knew whether Liam had ever been to Hilo, Sean replied that he was not sure, but recalled Liam mentioning a few times that he wanted to get away from Kona for a bit. This statement created the first reasonable gap in Liam's story, but it also revealed a clear contradiction with the 2005 claim that Liam never left Kona in the evening. The investigative team assessed Sean's statement as inconsistent and showing signs of concealment to avoid implication. Most critically was Evan Silva, the only one who had previously described Liam exhibiting prolonged unstable behavior. When confronted with forensic information proving Kai's body had been in Kwamana Cave for many years, along with Liam's phone data appearing on Saddle Road on the exact night of the disappearance, Evan showed strong hesitation. When asked again about the earlier statement, not wanting anyone to get in his way that Liam had made, Evan admitted it was not a joke, as he had described in 2005. Evan stated that Liam had mentioned wanting to change his life and throw away all family ties, and in another private conversation had asked Evan if he knew any way to hide someone in a forest. In 2005, Evan had not disclosed this detail, believing friends sometimes spoke exaggeratedly, but after hearing the full new data, he admitted he had underestimated the seriousness of those signs. Investigators followed up by asking whether Evan knew if Liam had ever gone up Saddle Road in the evening. After some hesitation, Evan stated that once Liam said he was driving along the mountain to think, though he did not specify the location. Evan's revisions and additions to his statement made the major inconsistencies in the old file evident. Liam had concealed his habit of nighttime driving, had made statements suggesting psychological preparation to harm someone, and had probed friends about moving or hiding a person. When the digital and forensic data were placed alongside Evan's new statement, the investigative team formed a clearer structure of an abnormal movement pattern. Liam likely left Kona shortly after Kai separated from the group, traveled along Saddle Road, and was near the Hilo area before full darkness consistent with Kai's photo metadata and the estimated time the body was placed in the cave. After the interview sessions, the investigative team drafted an official report noting that witnesses had given false statements or withheld information during the 2005 investigation, and that the current contradictions all bore signs of intentional protection of Liam. From this point, the case file moved to the status of preparing legal grounds, including extracting additional carrier location data, re-verifying possible routes Liam may have taken, and determining whether witnesses such as Matt or Sean had any role as accomplices, whether indirect or supportive in the body transport process. With the newly obtained evidence, the investigative team began building the legal file to move toward search warrants, seizure of Liam's old devices, and initial steps toward examining criminal liability for aiding or concealing the crime by those involved. After Evans' new statement, along with digital and forensic data, indicated that Sean Piper might hold far more information than he had presented in 2005, the investigative team decided to apply an indirect tactic. Instead of immediately arresting Sean for involvement in Kai's case, they reviewed administrative records and discovered Sean had an unresolved violation related to falsifying vehicle registration in 2016. Based on that, an arrest warrant was issued in Hilo, where Sean was temporarily residing. The goal of this step was not to prosecute the minor violation, but to create a legal basis for conducting an extended interview under lawful custody. When Sean was brought into the interview room, investigators did not immediately mention Kai's disappearance, but began by asking about the origin of the vehicle tied to the violation. Sean initially became defensive, maintaining that it was unrelated and offering no further details. But when investigators abruptly shifted to the 2005 cell tower data proving Sean's phone also briefly connected to a tower on Saddle Road, at the same time Liam's phone appeared, Sean's expression changed markedly. This forced him to realize the old case was being reopened with irrefutable evidence. When investigators presented additional forensic images from Kona caves, Sean began to waver strongly. The point that caused him to break completely was hearing the metadata of Kai's final photo taken in an inland area near Hilo, which completely contradicted the story Sean and Liam had given in 2005. After nearly 40 minutes of silence and refusing to answer, Sean requested to speak but didn't want to be seen as the one who started it. Investigators recorded the official statement, and from there, the true story began to emerge. Sean stated that on the evening of August 18, 2005, Liam contacted him before the family dinner and said he needed help with something urgent. Sean was asked to drive from Kona to a meeting point near the Saddle Road entrance, where Liam said he would bring Kai to have a private talk. Sean insisted he did not know the specific plan, only thinking Liam wanted to intervene in family conflict. According to the statement, after the Kahili family left Hugo's restaurant, Liam separated from his parents much earlier than stated in 2005, using the excuse of going back to get stuff to go to the Lava Rocks, then quickly went to a nearby parked car. At the same time, Liam texted Sean that he was on the way. Around 20:40, Sean saw Liam drive up to the meeting point, but without Kai. A few minutes later, Liam turned the car around this time with Kai in the passenger seat, looking confused but showing no strong resistance. As soon as the car stopped, Liam pulled Kai out, saying they needed to talk somewhere quiet. Sean recounted that there was initially no intention of violence, but the situation escalated when Kai realized something was wrong and demanded to go back. Liam, as Sean described, started losing control, pushing Kai back toward the edge of the dirt road, leading to a scuffle. Sean stated that Kai slipped, hit his head on a low natural rock outcrop by the roadside forensic, later confirmed the skull and rib fracture patterns matched this account. After the fall, Kai was unconscious and breathing very weakly. Sean said he panicked and urged Liam to take the victim to the hospital, but Liam refused, saying things had gone too far and there was no going back. From there, the story shifted to actively concealing the body. Sean described Liam ordering Kai loaded into the car, with the back seats folded down and the two of them transporting Kai toward Hilo. When asked why Hilo, Sean replied that Liam had said the area was one no one from Kona would come looking and had places easy for someone to disappear. The route Kona, Saddle Road, Hilo matched perfectly with the cell tower data obtained by the investigative team. Near Kwamana Caves, Liam asked to stop the car at a dark dirt section. Then together with Sean, they dragged Kai's body down to the cave slope area. Sean stated he wanted to place Kai near the cave entrance for easier positioning, but Liam insisted on pulling him deeper into a small rock alcove. Forensic evidence proved the body was placed in a deep alcove and covered with soil matching this description. Sean said Liam searched Kai's backpack, took the camera, then after a few minutes of thinking, threw the camera back into the alcove along with the shirt and sandals. The purpose, according to Sean, was to make the body and items look like they were naturally abandoned. After hiding the body, Sean stated both returned to Kona to stage a false scene, including Liam appearing with his parents at the lava rocks and saying Kai was out looking at the ocean. This aligned with the unexplained time gap in Liam's 2005 statement. He could not account for being missing over 30 minutes before the family began searching for Kai. Sean's statement matched forensic points exactly. Fracture mechanism, body position, soil samples on Liam's pants, cell tower timeline, and camera metadata. More importantly, Sean confirmed Liam was the one who actively took Kai away, caused the scuffle leading to unconsciousness, chose the hiding location, arranged the items, and staged the scene in Kona. With this statement, corroborated by the chain of objective evidence, the investigative team determined Liam Kahili as the sole mastermind of the entire incident, with Sean participating as an accomplice in transporting and concealing the body. The interview session ended with a nearly 30-page record, marking the first time in 12 years since Kai's disappearance that a direct statement described the full sequence of events from Kona to Hilo in logical order and complete consistency with forensic data. After Sean Piper provided the pivotal statement, the investigative team focused on verifying Matt Work's role, the person who, from 2005 to the present, had consistently shown contradictions in his statements and signs of actively concealing information. The confrontation was arranged immediately after Sean's interview record was finalized. Investigators opened the session by recapping the inconsistencies in Matt's statements over the 12 years, the timing of messages, Liam's movements that evening, and Matt's insistence that he did not know Liam left Kona. They then placed Sean's entire new statement on the table, along with forensic evidence, soil samples from the body, matching soil on Liam's pants, cell tower data confirming the Kona Saddle Road to Hilo route, and metadata in Kai's camera. When Matt was informed that Sean had disclosed the full sequence, his reaction shifted instantly from defensive to confused and anxious. Investigators asked Matt to explain why a series of objective, unmanipulable data all proved Liam left Kona that evening, while Matt had firmly denied it in 2005. When Matt did not respond, investigators revealed Sean's detail that Matt was not present at Saddle Road but participated in the preparation phase and assisted with the plan's launch. At that point, Matt reacted strongly and demanded clarification on what Sean said. This inadvertently confirmed that Matt knew more than he had previously admitted. When investigators referenced Sean's description of Matt having met Liam before the incident, where the two discussed needing to keep Kai calm to take him for a private talk, Matt's face paled. Although Matt denied being at the Hilo scene when the body was hidden, investigators continued the confrontation with forensic evidence. Cut marks on the surface of Kai's ankle bone from contact with a sharp-edged, hard object matching cuts on a type of hiking boot Matt commonly wore, as seen in his 2005 social media photos. When the cut shape was compared to manufacturer-provided boot samples, the characteristics matched to a degree very difficult to deny. Matt responded by saying, "Maybe Kai had gone with me earlier and picked up boot marks beforehand," but this was immediately rejected because forensic determined the injury occurred at the time of Kai's death. After nearly an hour of confrontation, Matt admitted that Liam had once asked him to help talk to Kai to avoid family arguments, but insisted he did not think it was preparation for anything serious. When investigators presented additional cell tower data proving Matt's phone appeared in the Saddle Road Hilo connector intersection area about an hour after Liam and Sean were confirmed near Kwamana Caves, Matt finally admitted he was in the Hilo area that evening, a fact he had concealed for 12 years. According to the new statement, Matt did not directly participate in the scuffle that rendered Kai unconscious, but was present at a nearby dirt road section and kept his distance at Liam's request. Matt stated his task was to stay at the observation point, to watch and maintain phone contact. The cell tower data matched this statement completely, with Matt's device signal connecting to a tower near the Mountain Road junction, consistent with the wait point Sean described. Once the cross-verification of statements between Matt and Sean was completed, the investigative team had sufficient data to construct the criminal model. Liam Kahale, as the mastermind who directly took Kai from Kona, caused the scuffle leading to unconsciousness, selected the body-hiding location, and staged the false scene. Sean Piper, as the accomplice who assisted in transporting the body, participated in concealing it, and helped fabricate the disappearance story. Matt Rourke, in a peripheral support role, providing lookout during Liam and Sean's movement of Kai's body into the Kuamana area, while concealing information and giving false statements throughout the investigation. After the criminal model was finalized, the investigative team began preparing the legal file to request Liam's arrest warrant. Key documents included Sean's highly detailed statement matching forensic, Matt's adjusted statement confirming the Hilo journey, cell tower data for Liam, Matt, and Sean, soil analysis proving Liam's contact with Hilo, terrain on the night of the disappearance, camera metadata confirming Kai's actual location before death, bone report confirming the death mechanism inconsistent with accident. The investigative team concluded the Matt confrontation by noting that the current evidence framework no longer relied on speculation but had become a logical system connecting the entire crime journey, from Kona up Saddle Road to Hilo and back to Kona to stage the scene. With the criminal structure and role assignments clear, the file moved to the critical next step, preparing full legal conditions to request Liam Kahale's arrest warrant. After finalizing the criminal model and gathering sufficient legal grounds to request an arrest warrant, the investigative team coordinated with the Hawaii Prosecutor's Office to submit a nationwide warrant for Liam Kahale. However, when authorities arrived at the last known residence on record from 2006, they discovered Liam had left Hawaii many years earlier without leaving a forwarding address. From there, the search shifted to the federal level. Kona PD contacted the FBI Honolulu field office, providing all digital data, forensic evidence, and statements from Sean and Matt to establish that Liam was a first-degree murder suspect and was a fugitive from jurisdiction. The FBI activated identity tracking procedures based on civil records, financial transactions, rental data, and tax filings. No records under the name Liam Kahale appeared after 2007, but a series of transactions in California under the name Ryan Hale showed signs of an individual with a similar birth date, differing by only one digit in the Social Security number. The breakthrough came when the FBI used facial recognition technology to compare against the California driver's license of Ryan Hale. The facial recognition points matched at 94%, sufficient to trigger deeper investigation. Federal authorities determined Liam was living in Fresno, working at a mechanical equipment repair shop using a false identity registered with black market documents acquired in 2010. After verifying Liam did not possess firearms and posed no high immediate danger in the work environment, the FBI and Fresno PD coordinated a safe arrest tactic at the workplace during early morning hours when few people were present. When Liam, under the name Ryan, entered the shop and swiped his employee badge, the tactical team surrounded him, ordering him to lower his hands and not move. Liam did not resist, but appeared panicked when informed the arrest warrant originated from Hawaii concerning a 2005 homicide. An emergency search of Liam's residence under a California court order recovered several key items of evidence: a map of the Hilo area with the Kona Saddle Road route circled and marked multiple times, a notebook containing faded notes, including the line, "Shoes, discreet spot, no return," and a plastic bag containing dry black soil preliminarily identified as matching characteristics of soil from the Hilo lava tube cave region. These items further reinforced the movement model and showed Liam had scouted or calculated Hilo terrain before or after the crime. Additionally, the FBI found an old USB drive containing text files with timestamp lists, including entries such as 20:40 leave Kona, 21:10 up Saddle, 22 Hilo, fully consistent with the cell tower timeline constructed by the Hawaii investigative team. Among other personal items, authorities discovered a paper wallet containing 2 old photos of Liam and Kahale, detail noted for potential psychological motive or prior attachment, though not yet of sufficient investigative value pending deeper analysis. The arrest process concluded safely, and Liam was informed he would be extradited to Ohio to face charges of first-degree murder, along with related charges for concealing a body and staging a false scene. With Liam's arrest, the entire case structure shifted from evidence establishment to prosecution preparation. marking the most significant turning point since Kai vanished more than 12 years earlier. After Liam was arrested in California and all new evidence was recovered, the Hawaii investigation team carried out the most critical step before transferring the case file to the prosecutor's office, reconstructing the entire sequence of events of the crime on the night of August 18, 2005. This was done by combining the cross-verified statements of Sean and Matt, cell tower data, forensic evidence from the body, soil samples, camera metadata, and timelines collected from 2005 to 2017. This reconstruction served not only a technical purpose, but also played a pivotal role in proving Liam's deliberate chain of actions, establishing motive, method, sequence, and the involvement of the participants. According to the synthesized model, the initiating event occurred right after the Kahili family left Hugo's on the Rocks restaurant, when Liam separated from his parents under the pretext of going back to the car to get something, but in reality to move to a pre-parked vehicle a few blocks away. Cell tower data showed no connection from Liam's phone to the coastal tower after 2035, supporting the conclusion that he left the area earlier than initially claimed. During this time, Matt, according to his new statement, kept in contact with Liam by phone, with Liam informing him that it's time, a detail that matched the message Sean said he received requesting help with something urgent, while the family still believed Kai had gone down to the rocky shore to take photos. Liam returned to that area within minutes, approached Kai, and said he wanted to talk privately. Metadata from the last photo on Kai's camera showed he took no pictures at the rocky shore after the last time he was seen, confirming Kai left the area early and departed entirely at Liam's direction or under psychological pressure. The subsequent journey was established through cell tower data. Liam's and Sean's phones both connected to the Saddle Road Tower between 2050-2110, meaning all three Liam, Kai, and Sean had left Kona and traveled inland via the mountain pass. Matt, although not in the same vehicle, appeared in the area near the Hilo junction between 2115-2130, consistent with the lookout point Sean described. When the group approached the Kiwi Forest and the entrance to Kwamana Caves, Sean stated that Liam stopped the car, pulled Kai out to talk privately. But the situation escalated when Kai realized he was being taken far from Kona. Sean's statement clearly said Liam lost control, pushing Kai back toward a natural rock formation. Forensic evidence confirmed that Kai's skull fracture and rib fractures matched direct impact onto a hard, low-elevation rock surface, not a fall from height, and completely inconsistent with the ocean accident. The fractures showed non-healing characteristics, meaning they occurred immediately before death. Sean also stated that Kai became unconscious right after the impact, breathing weakly, but still showing signs of life. Forensic data supported the possibility that Kai did not die instantly, but remained in an unconscious state while being moved. After Kai fell, Sean panicked and wanted to take him to a hospital, but Liam firmly refused. Evidence recovered from Liam's residence in California, a Hilo map with circled inland routes and notes reading "secluded spot, no return," matched the statement that Liam had pre-selected the area to conceal the body if necessary. From there, both lifted Kai's body into the backseat and drove deeper into the Kwamana Caves area. A hillside cell tower recorded Sean's device in the coverage area near Kwamana, around 21:40-21:55, fully consistent with the time Sean described them looking for a rock crevice. Matt, per his new statement, stood several hundred meters away to keep watch and alert if any strange vehicles or pedestrians approached. At the crevice, forensic analysis determined the body was placed in a natural depression, covered with weathered basalt soil. Sediment on the bones and in the soil bag recovered by the FBI from Liam's home had matching mineral composition, strong evidence that Liam had direct contact with the cave area. Sean described Liam rummaging through Kai's backpack, taking the camera, then throwing it into the crevice along with the sandals and shirt to make it look like the victim brought his things and met with misfortune somewhere. This perfectly matched the 2005 evidence. Condition: the items were found in Kona, but forensic testing confirmed they had no seawater exposure, highly likely moved manually to stage a false scene. After concealing the body, Sean stated that both returned to Kona via the same Saddle Road route. Cell towers continued to record Liam's and Sean's devices reconnecting to the Kona tower around 23:10-23:30. This time frame aligned with Kai's parents' statement that they began searching after 21A and did not see Liam reappear for nearly an hour and a half. Liam returned to the Kona scene appearing panicked and worried for his brother to reinforce the story that Kai had gone missing while watching the sea. Because the body had been hidden more than 120 kilometers from Kona with no traces on the rocky shore and no direct evidence of violence at the original scene, the 2005 investigation was entirely based on a mistaken assumption. Ultimately, the investigation team concluded the crime sequence as follows. Liam actively deceived Kai into leaving the family, took him into the vehicle, and transported him inland. Matt played a supporting role in preparation and lookout. Sean participated in transporting the victim and concealing the body. The violent act leading to Kai's death occurred in the Hilo area. The body was hidden in a crevice at Kwamana Caves. All three returned to Kona to stage a fake missing person scene. Every step was corroborated by forensic evidence, metadata, cell tower data, and cross-check statements. Once the crime model was complete, the task force immediately began compiling the prosecution file, including first-degree murder charges against Liam, along with aiding and abetting and evidence tampering charges against Matt and Sean, preparing to move to the formal prosecution phase. The trial in the case of State of Hawaii v. Liam Kahili took place nearly 2 years after the defendant's arrest in California and extradition to Kona, marking the final legal phase of the disappearance murder case that had spanned over a decade. The Hawaii prosecutor's office charged Liam with 3 serious felonies: kidnapping in the first degree for intentionally removing Kai from his family and transporting the victim more than 120 kilometers against his will; manslaughter based on the forensic determined mechanism of death as a direct result of severe blunt impact while Liam pushed Kai in the Hilo area; and evidence tampering, consisting of concealing the body, placing evidence in the wrong location, and staging a false scene in Kona. During the trial, the prosecution presented a system of evidence that had taken more than 12 years to complete: forensic soil, bone, and body location data, camera metadata confirming Kai left Kona and was in the Hilo forest before death, cell tower logs proving the Kona, Saddle Road, Saddle Druid, Hilo journey matched Liam's device, cross-verified statements from accomplices Sean Piper and Matt Rourke, maps and notes seized from Liam's California residence, and a cause of death determined by forensic experts as blunt trauma impact, rather than an ocean accident as initially claimed. The prosecution emphasized that Liam's actions were not simply an unplanned escalation, but a prepared sequence, approaching the victim by creating a sense of safety, removing Kai from a public place, choosing a secluded route, leading the victim to an isolated Hilo area, committing violence resulting in unconsciousness and death, then actively concealing the body and staging a false scene to mislead investigators. In closing arguments, the prosecution presented a detailed timeline model showing Liam had sufficient time, means, and motive to carry out the entire sequence, while citing Sean's and Matt's statements, corroborated by forensics to reconstruct the full crime journey. The defense attempted to argue that Kai's death occurred during a spontaneous altercation with no prior intent to kill, and that Liam panicked, leading to body concealment rather than premeditation. However, the jury quickly recognized the weaknesses in this argument when compared against the consistent digital and physical evidence. Jurors paid particular attention to 2 factors. First, Liam's pre-prepared Hilo map and notes indicating planning. Second, the sequence of staging the false scene in Kona, demonstrating proactive criminal concealment rather than post-accident panic. After 8 days of trial and 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Liam Kahili guilty on all 3 counts. The trial judge emphasized that although the indictment did not charge him with murder in the first degree, due to lack of initial intent to kill, the level of endangerment, conduct causing death, and chain of concealment all demonstrated a grave disregard for the victim's life. Liam was sentenced to life imprisonment with eligibility for parole consideration after 25 years, reflecting the highest degree of culpability as the principal orchestrator in the crime structure. For the 2 accomplices, sentences were significantly reduced due to cooperation with investigators. Matt Rourke, who served as lookout and indirect support throughout the sequence, received 10 to 15 years pursuant to a plea agreement, with the judge noting his initial false statements seriously obstructed the investigation for many years. Sean Piper, who transported the victim and assisted in body concealment, but was the first to provide a full statement that helped resolve the cold case, was sentenced to 8-12 years, with potential further reduction for exceptional cooperation. When the sentences were announced, the courtroom fell completely silent, not out of surprise but because the detail and consistency of the evidence had made the outcome clear long before. The trial concluded with a clear determination of criminal responsibility for each involved party, marking the final step in an investigation spanning more than 12 years and putting an end to a case once considered an unsolvable disappearance. After the sentences for Liam Kahili, Matt Rourke, and Sean Piper were handed down, the Hawaii Police Department proceeded with the final step, concluding the investigation, evaluating errors in the initial 2005 handling, and completing an impact report on the overall process for handling missing persons and cold case files statewide. The report identified the most fundamental error in the 2005 investigation, not as a failure of on-scene capability, but as a flawed foundational assumption. All efforts focused on the Kona coastal area based on the presumption that Kai suffered a marine accident, despite no clear physical evidence to support this hypothesis. This assumption led to a cascade of consequences, narrowing the search radius to the shoreline, failing to expand tracking of family members' movements, not deeply analyzing inconsistencies in initial statements, and missing the opportunity to systematically collect soil samples from the clothing of involved parties. The report also noted that 2005 technology was not yet capable of extracting camera metadata, high-resolution mineral soil analysis, or cell tower positioning reconstruction. But the failure to comprehensively preserve digital evidence, including SD cards and phone data extractions from involved parties, was an avoidable mistake. Another key lesson was the lack of psychological and family relationship analysis. At the time, Liam's statements were deemed consistent and without motive for harm, causing investigators to not prioritize cross-comparing timelines or delving deeper into relationships among family members. The summary report stressed that the Kaikai case is clear proof of the critical role modern forensics plays in solving cold cases. From soil preserved in sealed bags to fracture pattern analysis, from camera metadata to cell tower reconstruction, each element holds limited value alone, but when combined under 2017 technology, they formed a logical chain leading to the truth. This is a classic case demonstrating that forensic science can overcome time of crime limitations, provided evidence is properly preserved and files are not lost. The resolution of the case also prompted Hawaii to review missing persons investigation procedures. In its recommendations, the Cold Case Unit proposed 3 major improvements. First, expanding the investigation scope from the outset, not relying solely on assumptions but using elimination methods. Second, mandating immediate collection and preservation of digital evidence upon a missing person report. Third, tracking the movements of all key witnesses via cell tower analysis when legally feasible. Additionally, the report suggested direct inter-district county communication protocols in missing persons cases to prevent bodies found in Hilo from being dismissed as unrelated to a Kona disappearance simply because it's outside the original search zone. For the Cold Case Unit, the Kaikahela case became an important training example for new generations of investigators, serving as a reminder that a single wrong assumption at the beginning can leave an entire file stalled for over a decade. The case closed with the official conclusion: Kai did not perish in Kona, did not fall into the ocean, and did not leave his family voluntarily. He was the victim of violence, taken against his will to Hilo, died from blunt impact, and was concealed in a lava tube area. The file records that the case was solved only through the combination of modern forensic technology, digital analysis, and the final truthful statements of the last witnesses. When the report was sealed, the Kai case was officially closed and classified as Cold Case Resolved, becoming one of the most prominent examples in Hawaii of the importance of re-examining dormant files whenever advancing technology opens new possibilities. The story of the Kaikahea case is not only the journey of solving a cold case that lasted over a decade, but also reflects many issues in contemporary American life, particularly how communities, families, and law enforcement respond to disappearances. One of the most important lessons comes from the initial 2005 investigation mistake. Both police and family assumed Kai disappeared at the Kona shoreline, and this unverified assumption sent the case off course. Today, as Americans face a large number of disappearances, especially among teenagers and young adults, the story reminds us that acting quickly but based on accurate information is what matters. Evidence overlooked in the initial investigation, such as soil on Liam's clothing, camera metadata, or cell tower data, became the key to cracking the case by 2017. This shows that in modern life, where technology is attached to every individual, recording, storing, and protecting data can literally mean the difference between life and death. Many American families searching for missing loved ones never think to back up phone data, photos, location history, yet those small details can save a life. Another lesson comes from Liam's staging of the scene. He appeared normal, had no prior record, belonged to no high-risk group, yet concealed instability for years. This reminds every American that domestic violence, psychological pressure, and unusual signs in loved ones like Liam suddenly leaving the group or making vague statements such as wanting to cut all ties should never be taken lightly. Finally, the Hilo case demonstrates that while modern forensic technology is now a powerful tool, the most important factor remains the persistence of the community and the belief that truth, no matter how deeply buried, can still be found if people do not give up. Thank you for joining us on this journey to solve a haunting cold case like the Hilo case. If you found the story useful, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next cases. See you in the next video, where we will continue exploring the hidden truths behind mysterious disappearances across the United States.